Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a Spider-Man can. He spins a web and he sighs, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Hey everybody, it's Benny One, and I'm back at you with another Spider-Man movie review. And everyone, we are reviewing Spider-Man 3, the movie that came out in 2007. This marks the end of the Sam Raimi trilogy, everybody, which is a bummer. I will say it's a bummer because they did have a fourth movie planned. And I'm going to warn you guys right now, this review might get a little ranty, just a bit, because this is very clearly the worst Spider-Man movie in the Sam Raimi trilogy. That is for sure. It could possibly be the worst Spider-Man movie out of the bunch of them, but that's a different topic, different discussion. So, I'm going to start out with the good, because there are a lot of things that I do like about this movie, but there are a lot of things that I don't like about this movie. So the good stuff is we have our cast returning. Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, J.K. Simmons. Everybody is back to play the characters they've been playing in these movies that we have been watching, reviewing, yada yada, da 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 da. So yeah, they're all great. They all do a great job, once again, with the material that they're given. There are certain things in the movie, though, that they do, especially Peter, that I'm like, okay, they wrote that a little weird, but we'll get to that. But Sandman, everybody. Sandman is the new villain, well, new villains, Jesus, that they put into this movie. And Thomas Hayden Church plays him. Phenomenal job. They cast him perfectly. He looks like he does out of the comic books. And the special effects I would say they looked fairly good. They looked pretty damn good for when this movie came out with the Sandman stuff. There's some really cool scenes where they show him and Peter fighting, and he's like pushing his head in on the subway train, and it's like grinding it away, and sand's all flying back. Like, that's some cool shit. Like that kind of stuff. But he does a great job. Great job. His backstory and everything, and the reasonings behind why he's doing what he's doing to save his daughter's life, those are great villains. And that's kind of the way it is with a lot of Spider-Man's villains is they have an actual somewhat of a good reason for doing what they're doing, even though they're bad and they're doing bad shit. So, which is unfortunate, but yeah. So Sandman was great. God, let's see. I don't know. I'm kind of losing the things that I like about the movie already. There's good action in it. Once again, there's a cool scene where there's a building that gets destroyed by a crane and shit. Gwen Stacy's in this movie. We get introduced to her and her dad, the captain of the police department. That's a cool scene where he saves her and all that, and he's flying in between the rubble and all that shit. Any of the scenes with the Sandman, too, the fight scenes between Peter and the Sandman. Okay, so the biggest problem with this damn movie, there is just way too much going on in this movie. Way too much. So, not only do we pick up with Mary Jane and Peter's relationship, she finds out at the end of Spider-Man 2 that he's Spider-Man, even though she kind of knew already, but she finally found out. So we have that going on. Let's see here. Then we get Sandman. He's a new character that gets introduced. He's our new main villain that gets introduced. And then we have the Harry storyline where he found out that Peter was Spider-Man, so he's pissed at Peter because Spider-Man killed his dad. So therefore Peter killed his dad, or he thinks he killed him, even though he didn't. So we have that. Let's see. We have the Aunt May storyline where she gets kicked out of she has to sell her house and moves into a new apartment. That's a small little thing, but another thing really quick that I liked. I actually liked that they connected the Sandman origin in a way to the first Spider-Man movie with Uncle Ben. I thought that was a nice touch, especially towards the end of the movie when you find out what really happened with the Sandman and everything, and how he accidentally shot Uncle Ben instead of just killed him cold-blooded, So I thought that was cool. That was actually a really nice touch. And then we get, like I said, we get Gwen Stacy gets introduced. Her dad gets introduced. Let's see here. Eddie Brock gets introduced. Yes, the guy that becomes Venom, because Venom is in this movie too. So on top of all the other shit that is coming over from the other movies, we get all this other stuff. We get Sandman, we get Eddie Brock, we get Venom, we get Gwen Stacy, we get her dad. It's just like there's so much in this movie. It's too much for one movie. They should, in my opinion, Eddie Brock should have not have been in this movie at all, because Topher Grace plays him, and I love Topher Grace. The guy is awesome in the 70s show. He's a very funny, comedic-ish type actor, but they cast the guy to play Eddie Brock, the guy that turns into Venom. He's not. They miscast him completely miscast the guy. And it's nothing against Topher Grace at all. I like the guy. But they totally miscast him. They wrote his character weird. He was more funny than anything. He most definitely did not look like Eddie Brock, because Tom Hardy plays Eddie Brock in the new Venom movies. He looks like Eddie Brock. Jesus, they actually did Venom proper in that movie, and we're getting another one. So yeah, the Venom thing totally should not, like, they could have had the symbiote in this movie, like, because Peter gets the symbiote and we get to see the black Spider-Man suit, which is really cool. It's the one that we know already, but it's black, and then they kind of did the Venom-ish things to his Spider-Man logos on the suit. It was cool, and it changed Peter, not in a good way. I didn't like what they did with that either. We had, emo Peter Parker walking around dancing like a freaking idiot in the streets of New York. Like, I'm sorry. He's supposed to make him mean and vile, not a dork and funny and stupid and like an emo. I don't know what they were doing with all that shit. The look of him. His Spider-Man suit looked cool. But yeah, Eddie Brock shouldn't have been in the movie. They should have just had the symbiote get on Peter, and then Peter get rid of the symbiote, and then show it maybe going after this guy with blonde-ish hair. And then that could have been in the fourth Sam Raimi movie about Venom being the villain. But then they had to sprinkle him on in the end of the movie just to show him and have Venom. And it's just like, I don't, like, there's a part in the movie where Topher Grace's character, when he's already Venom, freaking webs grabs Mary Jane, and he's like, my spider sense is tingling, if you know what I mean. Like, that's not what goddamn Venom would do. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry. They went a little too corny and funny in this movie, because these Spider-Man movies have always been a little bit on the silly side. But, like, this one, they took it too far. They just did. They took it way too far with a lot of scenes, a lot of our characters. Just too far. I mean, and then, because you got the Harry Osborn stuff. They make him forget that his memory, he loses his memory, and then he just all of a sudden remembers it again because he hears his dad's voice as the Green Goblin, which is cool. He's in the movie again. He pops up here and there in this movie. I don't know, you guys. This movie's way too overstuffed. Way too many characters. They could have split this into two movies very easily. Like, the Sandman should have been the main focus, because the story with the Sandman was awesome. It was great. And the symbiote thing, they nailed a lot of it. Like, they did. They nailed the way of the look of the symbiote and the way that it, like, grabbed onto Peter and took over his suit. And, like, they nailed all that. But the way Peter acted, nah. The way Venom actually looked in the movie when Eddie got him, nah. It just, too much. And I just, And then Sandman became the big old freaking CGI monster at the end of the movie. I don't know, you guys. The movie's just too stuffed. They seriously could have split this into two movies. They really could have split it into two movies. There's a sad part at the end of the movie, too, because Harry dies. Harry dies. Spoilers! Harry dies. It sucks. Yeah, it was actually really sad. So, and the movie just ends. Like, it ends on a very sad note, because they were going to make a fourth movie. I'm pretty sure the Vulture was going to be in the fourth movie, because there's concept art and everything. Like, they were working on it. Like, they were going to make a fourth movie, but this movie did not have a lot of great reviews. It made a shit ton of money. It had made almost $900 million, but Sam Raimi just didn't end up getting to finish it. So, but he's doing the second Doctor Strange movie. Super jacked about that shit. All right, everybody. So what should I give this movie? Obviously, I was not a huge fan, so I think I'm gonna give this one a. I'm gonna give it like a 6 out of 10, mainly because it's kind of a mess. It's really a mess. The storytelling's a mess because there's so many characters. Like the plot and everything is it's a mess because you have so much in one movie. It's really hard to make a great or a good story with all these characters, all these storylines, side arcs, all this stuff. It's just really hard. So I'm not like blaming anybody, but for me, it's just a 6 out of 10, everybody. So that was my review for Spider-Man 3, everybody. The 2007 Spider-Man 3. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And I'll be catching you on Tube Laters because I have spoken.